crisp morning of November 2nd, 2007, 6 men gathered across 4 vehicles on the outskirts of Dublin. This was no ordinary meetup. It was the culmination of weeks of planning, watching, and waiting. The target, a Chubb Security Company cash-in-transit van carrying over €880,000. The gang had an ace up their sleeve. An inside man, Chubb employee Daryl Caffrey, had fed them priceless details, delivery routes, van registrations, even possible key codes. With that knowledge, the gang set their sights on Selbridge, where the van was due to refill an ATM. Their target, a Nissan Patrol loaded with cash, rolled out from Sandyford. The gang shadowed it as it made its first drop, €70,000 at an Apple Green service station. Then at 10 a.m, the van pulled up outside Tesco in Selbridge. This was the moment they had been waiting for. As the driver stepped out, 2 of the men pounced. One carried 4 sets of keys, the other, a roaring consort, powerful enough to slice through steel. The man with the keys fumbled, trying again and again to open the van, but the lock refused to give. Seconds stretched into minutes. Then before the gang could regroup, Gardaí struck. They had been watching the operation unfold from the shadows, anticipating every move. Within moments, the would-be robbers were in handcuffs. Their tools of the trade, keys, walkie-talkies, white boiler suits, and 6 mobile phones were seized as evidence. The heist had collapsed just 10 minutes from fruition. The €880,000 inside was so close, yet out of reach. What could have been one of Ireland's biggest cash robberies, instead, ended in a clean sweep by Gardaí, turning a multi-million euro payday into a cautionary tale of hubris, betrayal, and bad luck. Among the 6 men who plotted the raid were the notorious Finglas brothers, Alan and Wayne Bradley, alongside the now-slain crime boss, Eamon the Don Dunne. Alan, better known on the streets as Fatpuss, had been spotted prowling around Chubb's headquarters just days before the attempted heist. He wasn't there by chance. He had managed to get his hands on several sets of keys to the company's cash vans, a prize that could make the difference between success and failure. But as the Gardaí were already watching, officers spotted Alan in a car near Chubb HQ on the morning of the raid, sitting with Dunne moments before the gang moved into action. What should have been their payday unraveled in seconds, leaving the gang exposed, fumbling, and doomed. Alan Fatpuss Bradley is no ordinary criminal. He is one of Ireland's most infamous underworld figures. For years he stood as a key player in the ruthless empire once controlled by Dublin's notorious drug baron, Eamon the Don Dunne. Dunne's reign was one of terror. At the height of his power, he commanded Ireland's most dangerous gang, a crew linked to an astonishing 17 murders. Feared and untouchable, he moved through Dublin's underworld like a king, until 2010 when the hunter became the hunted. That April, Dunne was shot dead in a Cabra pub, a public execution suspected to have been carried out by criminals from North Dublin with ties to both the Hutch and Kinahan gangs, then uneasy allies. With Dunne's empire shaken, Alan and his brother Wayne carried on their criminal careers, but the law never stopped circling. The Criminal Assets Bureau moved against the brothers, hitting them with demands for €362,000 in unpaid taxes and penalties, a clear signal that even the most feared figures could not escape the state's grip. From gangland enforcer to tax-targeted criminal, Alan Fatpuss Bradley's story is one of power, blood, and betrayal in Ireland's underworld. Alan Fatpuss Bradley's rise through Ireland's underworld began in the 1990s, when his name became synonymous with a string of armed robberies and even a pirate radio station that gave him notoriety on the streets. By the early 2000s, he was considered a major player in the world of heists, linked to at least a dozen daring robberies. One of the most infamous was the 1996 Century Omniplex raid, which netted a staggering £600,000 Irish. Around the same time, another hit at Dunnes stores in Cornwall's Court saw Bradley's crew walk away with £400,000 Irish. And by 2005, an exceptional wave of robberies across Dublin pointed straight back to his gang. Public infamy came in 2006, when Alan and his brother Wayne took a libel case against the Star on Sunday. The paper had branded them the leaders of one of Ireland's most dangerous gangs, claiming their crew had raked in €4 million from armed robberies. Despite never carrying serious convictions, the Bradleys lost their case, cementing their image as figures of fear. The following year, Alan grabbed headlines again, this time live on RTE's Liveline radio show, clashing with crime journalist Paul Williams.
Alan Bradley, and Alan, you've been mentioned earlier. Good afternoon. Go ahead, Alan.
Yes, up to 99.9% of the stuff that Paul Williams writes is absolute rubbish.
And what did he write about you?
He wrote that I was at the leave. I went on a holiday with my wife, kids, and he wrote that I was at the leaving the country. I'm at the running on a car bill. And he wrote again then when Marlow Hoyland was killed that I went up and I was fearing for my life and paid the Sinn Féin activist in Finglas a large sum of money, which is more rubbish.
Paul?
This is Alan Fatpuss. This is Alan Fatpuss Bradley we're talking to now, is it? A good man, Alan. Well, you should have introduced yourself to the public and tell them who you are, as the criminal figure who is also known as Fatpuss Bradley.
Joining him from his prison cell was armed robber John Daly, but when Daly walked free, he didn't stay free for long. He was executed in cold blood. Rumours swirled that Alan Bradley was behind the killing, though he vehemently denied any involvement. Survival in Ireland's gangland meant living under constant threat. Alan faced enemies on all sides, from rival Finglas criminals to the Rio IRA, led by Alan Ryan, who himself was gunned down in 2012. He also clashed with allies turned rivals, like associates of Paul Farmer Martin, executed on the orders of Eamon the Don Dunne in 2008. The paranoia was real. A man was once spotted on CCTV staking out Bradley's Meath home. Dunn's gang scrambled to identify him, and when criminal Gary Howard claimed he was Brendan Molyneux, allegedly hired by Martin's associates to take Bradley and Dunn out, the situation spiraled. Dunn's men gave Howard an ultimatum: kill Molyneux or be killed himself. In January 2010, Howard pulled the trigger. In a flat off Pierce Street, he murdered Brendan Molyneux and also shot dead Paddy Mooney, whose only crime was being at the wrong place at the wrong time. This was the brutal world Alan Bradley navigated, one of heists, betrayals and bloodshed, where survival often came down to who could strike first. In the lead up to their trial for the botched Selbridge cash-in-transit raid, the Bradley brothers tried to reinvent themselves, not as criminals, but as community men. Alan Bradley painted a picture of a family man and local leader. He told of running a pet farm and children's play area in Meath, of helping build playgrounds, putting up road safety signs, and even lending his time to a gym and kickboxing club. To neighbours, he was the friendly face of the Residents' Association, but behind the facade, the truth was darker. The Bradleys were anything but community heroes. They were ruthless gangland criminals. In April 2012, Alan Bradley was sentenced to 9 years in prison, later reduced on appeal to 8. He was no small-time player. In the failed 2007 heist, he was considered second in command to notorious gang boss Eamon the Don Dunne, and his ties to Dublin's criminal underworld ran deep. He walked free in 2016. His brother played a smaller role that day, acting as a lookout, and was handed 5 years behind bars, released in 2015. Dunne himself never made it to trial. He was shot dead before ever facing justice. The Bradleys eventually pleaded guilty at Dublin Circuit Criminal Court to conspiring to steal cash from Chubb Island. Alan's record spoke volumes: 32 previous convictions, while his brother had 12, mostly minor offences. Yet their names were now etched into the history of Ireland's gangland, not as community champions, but as men who lived double lives, one in the daylight, one in the shadows of organised crime. Since walking free from prison in 2016, Alan Fatpuss Bradley, once a bodybuilding enthusiast who flexed his muscle-bound frame in competitions, managed for a time to steer clear of the bloody feuds that had long defined his life. He even rebranded himself as a personal trainer, and after a health scare, appeared to be toning down his criminal past. But Bradley's name was never far from controversy. On Easter weekend 2024, Gardaí were called to a Finglas pub after a panic alarm was triggered. When officers arrived, they found Bradley in a highly intoxicated state, allegedly screaming and shouting his head off. He was arrested on the spot for public order offences. According to locals, the trouble began when Bradley stormed into the pub demanding to speak to a woman he believed was inside. When staff asked him to leave, he became aggressive, sparking the incident that ended with his arrest. It was his first run-in with the law in years. The last known Garda investigation into Bradley dated back to November 2021. But it was Halloween night of that same year when his violent streak was captured for all to see. In a shocking video filmed by his brother Wayne and later shared online, Bradley was seen savagely attacking an innocent delivery driver on a Finglas street. The brutal footage went viral. The video shows Bradley grabbing his victim, throwing him to the ground, and unleashing a barrage of punches to the head before kicking him with force, as horrified family and friends screamed for him to stop. The victim was left bloodied on the street, his jaw shattered and his body marked with serious injuries. What sparked such a savage beating? A simple mistake, sending a message to the wrong number while out socializing. That one slip led to a violent misunderstanding with brutal consequences. Alan Fatpuss Bradley was arrested in connection with the attack, but later released without charge as a file was sent to the DPP. In the end, the case fizzled out. The victim chose not to pursue the matter any further, and even Bradley himself later admitted the message had been nothing more than a misunderstanding. But for the man on the receiving end, the scars, both physical and psychological, would serve as a permanent reminder of what happens when a trivial mistake collides with a violent reputation. For all the years Alan spent trying to reshape his image, the footage was a stark reminder. Beneath the surface, Alan Fatpuss Bradley remained every bit as dangerous as the underworld figure who once terrorized Dublin. And that wasn't all. That same year, 2024, Fatpuss shocked social media when he filmed himself in a bizarre call-out video. With a series of knives strapped around his bulging stomach, he brandished the blades at the camera, mimicking the style of Traveller and bare-knuckle boxing feuds. Pointing a sharp knife directly at the lens, Bradley launched into a rambling monologue. "You know that people are going around saying the Bradleys are only blackguards and bowsies," he declared. "We're normal old country people. But I tell ya, we never took no messing off no one." He insisted he had never carried a blade in his life, yet waved several in front of the camera, claiming Fatpuss Bradley was still the man. He added, "We don't use blades. We may carry them, but we just go around doing our own thing." The video ended with Bradley shouting his final line like a gangster's punchline. "Put that in your fucking pipe and smoke it." Shared widely online, the clip quickly went viral, cementing his reputation not just as a feared gangland figure, but as a man who thrived on notoriety and spectacle. Following the video by Alan, in which he appeared to do a mock Traveller call-out while brandishing knives, cars outside the home of his brother Wayne Bradley were smashed up. In the aftermath of Alan Bradley's bizarre Traveller call-out video, violence quickly followed. Cars outside the home of his brother Wayne were smashed up, the first in a series of escalating attacks. Wayne Bradley has since become the target of repeated strikes, the most serious when his white Audi A6 was petrol-bombed outside his Finglas home at 3 a.m. Desperate to save it, Bradley grabbed water and tried to douse the flames. Investigators believe the attack may be tied to a bitter dispute with a criminal from Swords, North Dublin, a feud that has been simmering since 2024. Gardaí are probing the incidents, but so far, no arrests have been made, and the attacks haven't stopped. In the early hours of April 2, 2025, another vehicle outside Wayne's home was targeted. A window was smashed and accelerant poured inside, though this time, the car didn't ignite. Sources say both Alan and Wayne Bradley now spend most of their time away from Finglas. Since their release from prison, they've steered clear of direct involvement in the violent feuds that continue to scar the area. But the attacks on Wayne's doorstep suggest that, whether they like it or not, the shadow of their past still follows them. That was it for today's video. What are your thoughts on today's topic? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see our next videos.